another live episode, Shovik Sports. We have a special guest with us today, Arlen, Tennessee Tough Podcast. Follow him on Instagram. We'll get his tags up later on in the episode. Arlen, appreciate you joining us. How are you, friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
No worries. We got a lot of free agency talk today. There's been some moves that have been made, some moves that are still being made. And of course, there is someone in here who has a team who has the number one overall pick. So get his thoughts on the number one overall pick. Bro, how's it going? What are you up to?
Oh, just enjoying the Chiefs having no money, trying to find ways to restructure and scrounge together some depth pieces, but uh even with that, I still enjoy free agency, right? You see a lot of movement, you kind of see a lot of shit that you don't really expect, right? Like some moves, some trades, some cuts. It's getting crazier and crazier as the years go on, but a team like the Chiefs, they don't get a whole lot of moves each year, so you kind of see what bargain bin deals they can find. And I think they've done a couple so far that we'll touch base on later. But other than that, just enjoying the craziness of the NFL offseason.
Yeah, let's start diving in. Arlen, we're gonna go Titans real quick. The big one they did, kind of right off the bat. Dan Moore, 4 years, 82 mil, 50 mil guaranteed. What's your initial thoughts on them kind of piecing together the offensive line, because they made another move today to get someone else that they're starting to kind of piece something together to maybe it's kind of tipping their hand on maybe what they might do in the draft.
The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Dan Moore is that dude got a bag for how, in my opinion, he's been mediocre. I mean, I understand when you're not good and the Titans aren't good, you're going to pay like a we suck tax for going
Yeah,
there. But I mean, I just don't think he's worth 80 million. He's definitely a step up from MPF, which I don't know if you watched any Titans games at all. If you didn't, I really don't blame you. It was awful. But 50 million guaranteed just seems kind of like an overstretch. So, I mean, he had his best season last year, despite giving up the most sacks in the NFL. But hopefully, Bill Callahan can just kind of coach him a little bit, and hopefully, he's just a stable upgrade from MPF. And I mean, we're not winning the Super Bowl this year, so it really isn't going to be as big of a deal as I think people are making it, though.
yeah, no, that's a good point. And then obviously the move today, Kevin Zeitler, good veteran to put in the interior. So now it's projected Dan Moore, Peter Skronsky, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, and J.C. Latham. I mean, that's still, I mean, on paper, it's still a pretty good offensive line. Is it Will Levis? Is it a quarterback in the draft? I mean, yeah, I mean, you do have to. We've all had our team's been there, right? We've all had to pay.
Yeah.
We've all had to overpay. But at least they're somewhat trying to, address that and maybe try to give, if it is Will Levis, some help.
hmm
Yeah, and I think he nailed it on. I think he said it perfectly. Like Dan Moore is an upgrade, but you just look at the contract, right? Like, is that really worth the upgrade? Like, are you getting a $50 million upgrade? Now I know that I can't say his name very well, and I heard him say abbreviated, but it's like Petit Fier or whatever his name was. Like, so it is an upgrade from that, but that's like when I saw what the Chiefs signed the other Moore for. Uh, I liked it because I didn't want to give out the Dan Moore contract, right? I would take 2 for 30 over that 80 million, and it's nothing against Dan Moore, right? Like, go get your bag, but at the same day, like that's a lot of money for. I mean, yes, an upgrade, but like average to slightly above average left tackle. So, uh, but Callahan is one of the best offensive line coaches, right? So if you just give him a good
hmm
foundation to work with, I think you're right. Like he could probably coach him up some.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I really don't think $80 million. I really just don't think that that's the smartest move for Borgonzi and Brinker or whoever's running the show. I really don't know. But I mean, the only thing that really bugs me about Dan Moore is that he's a left tackle. JC or I'm sorry, right tackle. JC Latham, when he was drafted, he played left tackle at Alabama. You move him over at right tackle for a year. With Dan Moore, he's not going to play right tackle. He's going to play left tackle. Or not. This frustrates me so much. But you're moving J.C. Latham back to right tackle, which is where he played. You waste his rookie year.
Right.
So you're going to flip him across to the other tackle. I just don't. It's just confusing. I mean, last year all we heard from Brian Callahan is that we really believe that J.C. Latham could play left tackle or right tackle or whatever, whichever side. That just really bugs me that you're moving him from where he's played in the NFL. And I thought he played pretty well considering that he was moved from what he's played all his life. So I just a really not my favorite move. I am a fan of the Kevin Zeitler move though. That obviously. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. You're fine. And pair him with Lloyd. I'm very familiar with Lloyd Cushenberry. Obviously, he was drafted by Denver. It was actually one of those that was kind of sad to see him go, but Tennessee also obviously overpaid him as well, and I think the season got cut short last year. But I still think when healthy, Lloyd's pretty good. But you still need that veteran presence, and Kevin Zeitler provides that mainstay. Essentially, he's been there. He was on a good Lions team. So he knows a thing or two that maybe he can teach these guys and coach those guys up.
Obviously, he's 35. He's definitely not the long-term solution. But I mean, in a year where you're just kind of trying to piece together a team that can be competitive, I think he'll do just fine. I mean, I was very happy with that.
Yeah, you add that veteran around the young guys, right? This is more of like a teaching / like I'm here for you to help make your life better and progress you than it is anything else, right? Like you don't bring in a 35-year-old looking to have him for the future. This is more these offensive line guys we've named. They're all pretty young, right? Like Skronsky's not exactly like a big time veteran yet, right? Like he's been around, but he could still use some veteran presence. Lloyd Cushenberry. I mean, you look at the veteran guards that help centers, right? I think Joe Thuney in Kansas City was huge for, Creed Humphrey's development, made his life easier. So I think this is one of those hires, and I think it's just one of those value picks that nobody's really going to talk about unless you're like an actual fan. But I think it's a future hire just for the people around him type deal. So that move made sense.
The offensive line in Tennessee, it's been terrible for years, ever since Taylor Lewan, Will Compton, all those guys left. Really, the offensive tackle, it's just like a game of The Price is Wrong. It's the rotating door of doo-doo. Andre Dillard, Dennis Daly, MPF, they've all been horrible. Hopefully, Dan Moore can really just kind of bring some stability. I'm not asking you to be a superstar. Just don't let yourself get crushed and let your quarterback get crushed. Because Cam Ward's going to try that if we draft Cam Ward, he's going to try all that nonchalant crap he tries to do at Miami. He's going to get killed. So you really need to fix that O-line before you think about competing. That's just me, though.
Yep, that's where it all starts, in the trenches. If you're not good there, you're usually not good anywhere else.
You're right. Let's go to one that kind of surprised me a little bit. Dolphins signed Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 2 years, 6.5. I was actually just telling my brother not too long ago, and we weren't recording, but I was like, they're set up with Calvin Ridley, Westbrook-Ikhine, and not even realizing that this dude was getting ready to sign elsewhere. So I was like, we talked last week about possibly looking at Sam Darnold as, that guy to bring in for Tennessee, and then use that first-round pick on Abdul Carter, because now you can get your face of the defense, and you could use Sam Darnold. But Westbrook-Ikhine is going to the Dolphins, boys. 2 years, 6.5. That's kind of a big loss if you think about it.
I'm more disappointed that we're so cheap we couldn't match a $3 million deal for a guy.
Right.
I mean, he's no Justin Jefferson. He's no Tyreek Hill, but we call him Mr. Reliable. I mean, he's just a good guy for touchdowns. He had 9 touchdowns this year, more than the Dolphins had in their whole receiving core. But I mean, it's more emotional because he's just been around so long. He's really just somebody that fans have really grown to love, but it's sad to see him go. But it's even sadder that our wide receiver room has Jaquan Jackson, Treylon Burks, and Calvin Ridley. It's just so many holes to fill. It's just awful.
Yeah, Westbrook-Ikhine was kind of that just consistent through the revolving door of receivers trying to get figured out around him, right? Like bringing in D-Hop, bringing in Ridley, bringing in other guys who may or may not have panned out. And this Westbrook-Ikhine was just there doing whatever was needed. I'm surprised he only got $6.5 million after seeing some of these other receiver contracts out there. Like, I would have taken him for even more money just compared to the receiver market, right? Like, there's a lot of value in a guy who's just reliable. You just know what he's going to do.
Hmm.
You can count on him. So yeah, that one was surprising to me, especially because that was a contract, like you said, they could have matched it. They could have even gone a little higher, right? Like, okay, so he went for like 3.5 mil per year. Like, we'll give you 4.5. Like, you've earned it with us. But yeah, that's surprising.
To me, them not matching that deal, they could have easily matched that. That signals to me, and I'm really upset that they're just like, we don't want you. You can go.
Yep.
I mean, if you can't match a $3 million deal, they could have. They had $61 million in cap space to start, and Harold Landry clears up another $10 million, but just disappointing. I mean, that to me, that just says we don't want you. You can leave, and I'm sure he'll go be an all-star somewhere else because that's usually what happens to people who leave Tennessee.
Yeah, and then they made another trade actually just right before we came on. Looks like they were finalizing a trade to the Cowboys. Kenneth Murray heading over to the Cowboys. I didn't see the return, bro. I don't know if you guys did either, but Kenneth Murray was kind of on my short list of maybe someone Denver may trade if we didn't get what we were able to land. Kenneth Murray's been reliable. I mean, we had to watch him not only in college at Oklahoma, being KU guys, and then obviously, going to the Chargers, and then he was actually on both of our short lists when he was coming out in the draft. At that time, we both teams needed those linebackers. So,
yeah, I think it was him in a 7th rounder, and then I think the Titans got a 6th rounder in return.
And I don't know if this is like a huge loss, honestly. I think obviously with where you guys are drafting and some of the draft capital, and the linebackers are so deep in this draft that you guys could easily replace this. I think this is more of just unloading and maybe picking up a couple, obviously last day picks, but kind of give us your initial thoughts on Kenneth Murray going to the Cowboys.
Honestly, I'm surprised we got a 6th rounder. I mean, just for us, I can't say how he's played anywhere else. For us, he really was not that good. He missed tackles. He just wasn't good. And who else but Jerry Jones to take him off our hands? I mean, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, Borgonzi said it himself. You guys said it. This is a really deep draft class of linebackers. And I just really think that you can get a guy who can be better than him in this draft. So this doesn't surprise me. It just signals that Borgonzi's cleaning house, kind of like Stonehouse, Akine, Luke Grifford, a lot of those guys. He's just cleaning the house. He's ready to move on.
Yeah, I think Murray was more of the, he had a high ceiling of just athleticism, but I don't think actual coverage and tackling and everything ever fully came full circle. So I'm not surprising that, you said those things with his performance in Tennessee. He's kind of relied on his athleticism to this part, but that'll only get you so far. So yeah, I mean, if he wasn't too great for the Titans and you're able to get that, I don't remember if it was a 5th or 6th round pick out of it. I mean, with how deep this draft, a 5th or 6th round pick could actually be a quality player. So that is a good move. And heck, you could even get your replacement linebacker in the 5th or 6th round in this draft. So yeah, Titans are active at least. They're not sitting pat.
Yeah. Also, they did sign Cody Barton. I thought that was a very solid signing. So
that was my next point.
Yeah.
He was with Denver last year, so he's not bad. He's going to tackle.
He's the opposite of Murray. He's not athletic, but he will tackle and he will be in the area he's supposed to be.
He's not very good in coverage, which you're not asking him to be. You want him to be that run stopper with the sense of your other linebackers are going to be able to be those coverage guys. I didn't hate the move. I'm glad he did get paid. I mean, for what they did give him, I'm kind of glad Denver ended up not giving him that contract. But no, I think Titan fans are going to like him. He's a hard worker. He filled in. It was huge because his first year in the system, Alex Singleton gets hurt, so he kind of fills in. And he won us some games. The Saints game off the top of my head where he had a couple picks. There was a couple, drop picks that he had, but he saved it. But then I think of the 60-yard bomb he gave up to Vidal from the Chargers and a wheel route that he just couldn't cover. So take the good with the bad. But again, it's a good veteran guy to have. But again, your front D line essentially is going to be the strength of that defense, and he'll fit in. He'll fit in
Yeah,
well.
well, I think when we talk about some of these, right, you talk about value. Like we can dissect Barton's game however we want, but at the end of the day, I think he's every bit of worth. I think it was 3 for 21,
Yeah.
like an annual
I think it was
value
something
of
around
7
that. Yeah.
mil. Like I think that's a pretty good value, right? Like you're not paying him to come be Roquan Smith. You're paying him to come be just a pretty good, reliable
hmm
linebacker. So that's how I always look at these. Like it's what Arlen started off with Dan Moore. Like nothing against Dan Moore. It was the money that kind of hesitates you on if you're happy about it or not. And I think with Cody Barton, 7 million annual value, I think that's just quality value for that kind of player.
I agree. And one thing that I was kind of just going through some tape and stuff. A lot of these players, I mean, the guys that Borganti have signed, they don't get injured very often. Dan Moore played 17 games. Cody Barton, I don't think he missed a lot of games, if any. Van Jefferson, we signed him today. Just, I really think a common theme with a lot of these guys is reliability because we really didn't have a lot of that last year. Cushenberry, Will Levis went down like week 3. So I just think that's one thing I am a fan of, that hopefully with a little miracle, we won't have as many injuries as we did last year.
Well, let's look at the division you're into, and we've talked about this, bro, multiple times. This is a winnable division. Like you're not far off. The Titans or the Texans trading Laramie Tunsil away, and then their guard, but then they're picking up some defensive players, but then obviously the Colts signing Daniel Jones, and then the Jaguars, and then the Jaguars are the Jaguars. You don't know what you're going to get with the Jaguars under a new head coach.
Duval.
Yeah, Duval.
Sorry.
So it's like it's there, right? So if you can nail some of these picks, if you can get your quarterback pick right, if it is Will Levis, if it is Cam Ward, whatever you guys decide to do, I mean, it's the South. I mean, it is what it is. It's not a good division, right? So CJ Stroud was it was a regression. They took a step back last year, and then obviously the Jags underperformed, fired their coach, and then the Colts are just going to keep doing what the Colts do. If it's Anthony Richardson again, I give them no chance to win the division. I do say Daniel Jones would give them a better chance, but again, it's Daniel Jones. Which Daniel Jones are you going to get? So where do you think they have to get to in order to maybe say, hey, get to 8-9 wins? That may be good enough to win the division.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The division's awful, all of them. I feel like one thing, I feel they have to get better this year. Callahan's coaching for his job. I mean, if you come out next year with another 3-win season, Callahan just pack his bags.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have Texans fan watching. I really am. I'm not a big believer in the Texans. I think if you put them in any other division with like the Chiefs, just any other, I really don't think they'd be a really good team. I don't think they'd be in the playoffs. But I mean, I can't sit here and say that the Titans are just elite because obviously they got last. But I do think they have a golden opportunity to kind of get themselves back in the AFC South race, maybe sneak in as a wild card. I just think there's just so many holes to fill. And I think the one thing that people have to remember is that this is going to take time. Like, we don't all end up like the Commanders and turn into championships the year after. We hope for that, but I just really think you just can't have a timeline for this. You just never know. Like, people had the Jaguars winning the AFC South, and they were horrible.
They're always the paper champions.
On paper.
Yep.
And the Colts, 8-9. I'm already calling that's how they'll go this year. But it starts again, like I said earlier, it starts with the offensive line. That you need to fix that O-line, and I really don't think they're that far off from that. Get yourself a quarterback, whoever it be, and I think you're right in there. The division it's just not good.
Yeah, I do. I don't know many or if any Titans fans, so this is just something kind of a personal one that I want to get kind of a Titans fan point of view on. Basically your feelings on L'Jarius Sneed. Trading and paying him and seeing how you feel about that. Or like, what was your initial thought? And then obviously him being hurt the whole year, probably not happy. But like, what was your initial thought on that?
Oh, when we first signed him, I thought it was a fleece. Like when we had Brand Carthon, I was jumping around the neighborhood screaming, "Let Rand cook!" I thought it was a fleece. Then he goes down, and then what? Sorry. We find out like at the end of the season that he had like surgery halfway through the season, and every week we were just told that he just strained it. He wouldn't keep playing. I mean, I think cornerback is like bottom down on the list of issues
Yeah.
that this team has. I really think if he can come out and be half as good as he was in Kansas City, because he was very good, I think we'll be fine at quarterback. We have Chidobe Awuzie. So I really think cornerback, I think he's fine. I like him. I think he's a solid player, but just injuries just killed this
Yep.
team.
Yeah, I was curious on the initial reaction because I'm kind of like you, but I was on the opposite side, right? I'm like, I know it was a business decision from the Chiefs' point of view. But I agree with you. I thought it was a fleece for the Titans, right? You can never predict injuries, but I was just curious on like a Titans fan point of view on the initial thoughts and then how it felt throughout the season because kind of I didn't even realize how quickly he had gotten hurt last year. And I was just trying to go look for him and he wasn't there. And I'm like, well, shoot, that was kind of quick.
I'm pretty sure he went down week 5 against the Colts, week 5 or 6. But it was just injuries. Just a lot of things went wrong.
Kind of the Titans season, right?
Just kind of the Titans season. Yeah, I was like you. I really thought the Titans won that trade, but as of right now, Kansas City, they came out on top on that one.
Yeah, so let's turn our attention to that number 1 pick. So we made our predictions last week. I think we both went Abdul Carter. I think originally my brother had.
I went crazy with it, bro. Like
yeah. So he went crazy with it. Abdul Carter was kind of the consensus, though. Just because I thought if they signed Sam Darnold, then that helped immensely. But obviously Sam Darnold goes to Seattle, so now that kind of opens it back up. Are they going to go Cam Ward? Or are they going to go Abdul Carter? Or who I think is the best player in the draft? Do they just say screw it and then maybe shock everybody and go Travis Hunter?
I think if it was up to Borgonzi, he would trade back and take Carter. But I really don't think he's going to get an offer good enough that's worth trading back and potentially missing on a player like Abdul Carter. The Cleveland Browns, they just signed Pickett and they're interviewing Russell Wilson. You don't know what they're going to do. They could pick Cam Ward. I think they stick at 1 and pick Cam Ward. One thing that every Titans fan laughs at me when I say this, I think if you wanted to trade back mid-round, maybe take a guy like Jackson Dart, maybe. I really like Jackson Dart. I think he could be a very good quarterback, but I don't think he's going to leave the first round.
Jackson Dart was kind of who we had as we think he's actually the best quarterback in the draft. As far as like a franchise quarterback goes, just given what he's done at college at the level he did it and the offense he had to run. So if there's a way Titans can make that happen, I would watch out for the Titans a lot sooner within a year or two for sure.
Honestly, if it was up to me, we take Carter, roll with my Kentucky boy, Will Levis, 1 more year, but they're not going to do that. I mean, that's going to get Callahan fired. And as much as I like him, you can't go with Will Levis as your quarterback year 2 for Callahan.
Yeah.
So I think
and we've been talking about coaches who are kind of fighting for their jobs. I didn't quite have Callahan there yet, but I mean, again, like you said, another 3-win season that kind of accelerates everything. But I think if you can manage to get 6 or 7 wins, maybe surprise some teams and maybe squeeze out an 8th, that might help. But yeah, I agree. It's
even if you get 5 wins, but you show that there's progress being made in the quarterback room, that could probably save you. I mean, that's where it all starts, right? Like, you win 5 games, but you either get a late round quarterback that showed promise. So, give me 1 more year to see what we can do with him type deal. Yeah, but I think there's nothing that could save him if he has another 3-win season.
Oh, 100% not. The quarterback thing, back to that, is interesting to me. This is just a rather weak quarterback class.
Very.
When we first got the pick, I wanted Shedeur Sanders, but as it's kind of went on a little bit, I've kind of hopped on the Cam Ward train a little bit. But the first thing I would want, trade back, get Cam Ward, or not Cam Ward, Abdul Carter. Second option, get Cam Ward. And then maybe Jackson Dart is kind of who I want, like out of all the quarterbacks, but I just don't see them getting him. I think he'll get snagged halfway through the first, and I don't think he'll trade back that far. So I think they go Cam Ward.
Yeah, no, that's obviously that's kind of where I think they're going to lean, just because the teams behind them that need quarterbacks as well. You know,
Mm-hmm.
are the Giants maybe going to say, "Hey, we'll give you guys something to get, move us up," instead of, letting the Browns do it, or it could be interesting in that top 4 or 5 teams kind of stretch. Obviously, the Patriots and Jags won't need a quarterback, and so they won't make the call. But it's always fun, just because whoever has the first pick, they're kind of setting the tone for the first round, and who's going to be the first team that kind of says, they shock everybody, and they don't take who everyone thought they were going to take. Again, I still think best off is Carter, and then kind of just go with it. I mean, I don't think, and I'm not a Will Levis hater at all. I actually kind of like the guy. Does he make stupid plays at times? Yes, most young quarterbacks do. Some of those, it was the Will Levis moment of the weeks last year that really got to me, where people would post, "Hey, here's what he's doing each week," and it's just a different picture of, "Hey, bet you can't guess what happened here," and it's a still frame of him just eating it. So, but
But
again,
then you also had those moments like that game he had against, I believe it was the Dolphins. Big comeback win, like straight up ball. Like he has those moments too, which I think is what makes it frustrating, right? Like we see the moments where, like, if you just put it together, he might follow that like Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, kind of what seems to be common now, the Sam Darnold paths, right? Like get cut by the Titans, be a backup for a couple years, and then find success later on, because he's shown glimpses of being a really, like, just have an incredible arm talent.
If they keep him around, I think it'll be like a Bryce Young situation. Like if they bring in, like, let's say a Kirk Cousins, or let's say a Mac Jones. But I don't want Mac Jones, but it's just frustrating. Like you had that game against Miami, you had that game against Houston this year where he played really well.
Yep.
Again, one thing I feel like, if you get rid of Callahan, you have to get rid of Will Levis.
Yep.
He's already switched offense once when Mike Vrabel went. And that's just a theme with the Tennessee Titans and quarterbacks. You had Marcus Mariota. He had 3 different offenses. He never really got time to adjust. So I feel like if Callahan is fired, you have to get rid of Will Levis. And I think he's already 1 foot out the door, especially if they take Ward. But it's just frustrating. I really wanted him to be our quarterback because I'm a Kentucky fan and I watched him while he was here after he came from Penn State. But yeah, it's definitely frustrating for sure.
yeah, I mean, again, we've all had quarterback issues. I mean, I've had to suffer through a ton of quarterbacks since Peyton Manning retired. Now we finally feel like we got one. So I mean, it does take time. It's one of those where it just kind of crappy that you have the number 1 overall pick this year with this quarterback class. Imagine if you, maybe if you had it last year, right? What could have been? But then that means you had to been crappy the year before, and you're like, well, you got to kind of take the good with the bad. It's like maybe we should have lost 1 or 2 more games last year. Maybe squeeze up. But again, you still had a pretty good first round pick. I mean, you still had options there where they picked last year. They just decided to go tackle instead of maybe squeezing in a Bo Nix or whoever was still available on the board at that time. But again, I don't question that pick last year with the tackle. Obviously, they believed in Will Levis. They were willing to give Will Levis a shot with a new coach. So now it's kind of like, well, year 2 in a system. But again, you don't want to have to keep going back and forth. I know Mason Rudolph and Will Levis were like, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to finish the game? It was one of those where, now you're kind of like the laughing stock of, which quarterback's going to do it. Then you get frustrated defense because your defense is pretty good. Now it's kind of just like, well, so again, probably should go quarterback in the first round. But again, I don't think Jackson Dart's going to be a number 1 overall pick. I don't think he's going to work his way up there. As much as we do love Jackson Dart, he's not going to be the number 1 overall pick. But if I had to take my pick between Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I'm taking Cam Ward. Bro, I think you're kind of on board with that too.
Yeah, I was on when we first got the pick. I wanted Shedeur Sanders. I was not a fan of Cam Ward at all, especially after his little stint with the little Pop-Tart ball, him quitting halfway through. I really didn't like that. I thought that showed like poor attitude. Maybe that's just me, but as it's kind of came out, I'm more a Cam Ward guy. I 100% think the best player overall in this draft is Abdul Carter. And I think if Will Levis just played decent and not a disaster, I think we'd be taking Abdul Carter. But I feel like situationally, with the situation we're in, with Callahan coaching for his job, I really think you have to take a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think the perfect world, right? Just because, we're just kind of what's the term for it? Couch GMs.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a perfect world, you'd be able to trade back to like 6 or 7 with like the Raiders or something, get some more picks and draft Jackson Dart there, because I would absolutely take him as my first quarterback. I think you guys are right. You can't justify taking him number 1 overall, even though he is a quarterback. But yeah, if my choice is Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I'm taking Cam Ward every day and twice on Sunday, and then 3 times on draft day. Because I'm with you. Like, your attitude does matter, right? Like, you're the leader of this.
Mm-hmm.
The quarterback's going to be the leader of the team, leader of the locker room. And it's not to say he's a bad leader in those aspects or he couldn't turn into one, right? But right now you've shown that like you'll quit on your team. It's not a good look. It doesn't take away from the talent he has, but a lot more goes into it than just talent when it comes to quarterback play. So yeah, I think you were spot on with that. I think I personally, just as a sports fan, would love the Titans to just take Abdul Carter, to just see him and like Sweat and Jeffrey Sent, like all of them just on that front. That would just be
Monstrous
gross.
defense.
Yeah, it really would be.
It'd be
Yeah, well,
monstrous.
and that's why I did my whole crazy scenario that the Titans trade for Myles Garrett and then sign or draft Abdul Carter.
I wanted him so bad, and then somebody asked him about it. Somebody asked him about it at either the Combine or the Senior Bowl, and he was like, "For me to go to Tennessee, I'll just stay where I'm at." I'm like, "Oh, there goes that." He just said no. I'm not doing that.
That's wild. You would think any place would be better than Cleveland.
Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah, but even Abdul Carter and Sweat and Sent, like that would just be a nasty front, right? Like, if you're not super sold on a quarterback and can't trade back, I still think drafting Abdul Carter would still be a successful number 1 overall pick.
Like you said, in a perfect world, you bring Will Levis back because he played good enough, and you draft Abdul Carter. That's really what I wanted to happen. Again, I just think the situation plays the biggest role. I think that with how awful your quarterback room is right now with Mason Rudolph. No shade at Mason Rudolph, but he's a backup quarterback, and Will Levis, as much as I loved having him be our starter, you just can't roll with him again. So I just think you have to go quarterback.
Yeah, you just hope that desperation doesn't really ruin draft night, right?
Yeah.
You don't make a pick or a move or something out of desperation, because I mean, that's really where Callahan's at, right? Like, if you don't figure out your quarterback or at least how to win a few more games, you're going to get desperate and you might screw some things up. So hopefully that kind of desperation and hot seat doesn't ruin draft night and just become a disaster.
I agree 100%. I really, again, even though it's unlikely, I don't think trading it is completely off the table. Borgonti said in his first press conference, he wants like a good amount of top 100 picks in the next like 3 years. I think it was like 12, something like that. But I just don't see them moving. I don't think they'll get a good enough offer, especially with Geno Smith to the Raiders. I think that's going to be their quarterback. I just don't see them going anywhere.
So outside of quarterbacks, let's put quarterbacks to the side. What do you think would be the biggest need on this team, offense or defense?
I feel like defense has some hole. I really think offense. I mean, with NWI out the door, wide receiver needs some help. I think just signed a guy like Cooper Kupp. Last I checked, he hasn't signed anywhere. They did get Van Jefferson. I thought that was a decent signing, but I would definitely say they need to, for this draft, they need to focus up on offense unless you take Carter. Again, the offensive line, that's going to be a little shaky starting out. Hopefully Bill Callahan can get that tight end. You have Chickaconquo, but you'll probably want a few more pieces there. But I would definitely say they need to focus on offense a lot more this time around.
Yeah, and again, there's certain positions that are deep in this draft, right? But again, I thought for the most part, Tony Pollard had a really good season last year as a running back, and Tajay Spear
phenomenal.
was a serviceable backup. Bro, I don't remember if you had Tony Pollard on your fantasy team or not. I don't remember.
I did. He was the one player for me who didn't just completely bust.
Yeah, I think I drafted him too. Yeah.
There you go. But
everyone yelled at me because I drafted him over Spears because Spears was kind of the hot name. I'm like, you don't pay Tony Pollard what you pay him to just like not use him. So yeah, I'm a Tony Pollard guy anyway.
Of all of the signings and all the play, he was probably, in my opinion, he was offense. If they gave out like awards and stuff, he was offensive MVP. He was just really good. He just always showed up when it mattered. So I really think
he was tough.
Yeah, I really think our running back. I think we got a good thing going there. Tajay Spears. I think he's going to develop to be a solid running back. So I think we're pretty good there.
Yeah, and there's still no update on Cooper Kupp, and I don't think if there is, it might be later tonight. I don't think he's going to rush. I think obviously once they granted him permission to talk to teams, I'm sure they've already had multiple conversations with teams that they're interested in going to. So if anything, why rush? I mean, you can just kind of see how it plays out and kind of go from there. So you guys have anything else on the old Titans before we kind of move on and spend the last few minutes talking a little bit of the Chiefs and Broncos?
No, I think I'm good. I think we covered about basically everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's exciting having that number 1 overall pick, but at the same time, it's kind of like, what are you going to do to mess it up, right? Like, are you going to be that team that messes it up, or are you going to be the ones that, you kind of lock in and you trust the new regime? You kind of trust that they know what they're doing and what they're working with. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the Broncos have a number 1 overall pick ever. I know my bro, Austin, you have with Eric Fisher, but that still played out rather well. So it'll be an interesting, month and a half as we get ready for the draft, and I'm sure as we start seeing more pro days and it's kind of seeing how free agency is kind of played out with what that's been going on, we'll get a better idea of where they're leaning with that first pick. I've also heard that they're leaning towards trading out of it too, but again, you never know, right? Like it's gonna have to be a haul, and I just don't know if this quarterback class is really worth trading up, or could it be a team that maybe trades up to get Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter? You never know. So let's move on real quick. First off, I want to talk to you about the DK Metcalf. Pittsburgh kind of coming out of nowhere with no quarterback, given looks like 5 years, 150 mil contract to go with that. DK in Pittsburgh, yay or nay? Austin, go.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good receiver. I don't know if he's in that 30 mil a year tier.
Especially with no quarterback.
Yeah, and I would say he's a receiver who's produced with, different quarterbacks and consistent quarterbacks. I mean, if him and Pickens it's a scary duo, right? Like if they can stay out of their own way, and just go play football and let their talent kind of be what you remember about them and not fighting each other or coaches or fans or teammates, it'd be a really good spot for a quarterback to go to, right? We'll just use Will Levis as an example. This would be like a Will Levis spot where he would go and end up looking dominant, right? Because those are two good receivers to have. Will Arthur Smith know how to use him? No idea. But I don't think ever getting a player like DK Metcalf, you can ever say it's a bad move. Because he's still a young, good, athletic, fast receiver.
Yeah, and we talked earlier, we did put Mike Tomlin in there in our grouping of kind of coaching for a job. You can only do so much, and I get no losing seasons, but you don't have any playoff wins the last few years to show for any of that. So Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it, if it's not Aaron Rodgers, you better hope you can sweet talk Russ, because it looks like Russ is starting to get his meetings booked with other teams. And I damn sure know that you're not willing to, you're not going to be in a position to get a quarterback. Do they try to wait and see if Kirk Cousins gets released, if and when? Is that kind of on table? Arlen, what's your thoughts initially when you saw DK getting traded to the Steelers?
I like it. The first thing I thought of, like you said, George Pickens. If they can stay out of their own way and just not be causing a conundrum on the sideline, I think it'd be really good. But you got to have someone to throw to him. I really don't see Russell Wilson going back. Justin Fields already out the door. Maybe, I'm not completely sure where they are in the draft. Maybe they trade up to get a Jackson Dart. Or they just sign a guy like Kirk Cousins. But I really like the move if they can get someone to throw them the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I really thought Justin Fields may stay, but I'm sure Pittsburgh wasn't trying to do the 2 for 40 that the Jets were kind of throwing out there. But I kind of do like that signing for the Jets. We'll see what Aaron Glenn and those guys can do with him, because it's still the Jets. So the Jets typically jet, right? So, but he has receivers. They obviously, their defense is still, but Aaron Glenn obviously is the defensive-minded coach. Does he coach the defense up like Robert Saleh was able to? I lean towards no, but I don't think it's going to be a huge drop-off. So it'll be interesting to see, and you're already in a tough division, right? So, again, Baltimore, since he's going to be better, even though they're not signing any of their defensive players or signing anything as far as, like, they're working about their offense. So that's going to be a fun kind of division, and hopefully we get a few guys on in the next few weeks to talk about the AFC North.
Don't forget about Kenny Pickett to the Browns.
Yeah,
Huge.
Kenneth Pickett to the Browns. Yeah, he's come a long way since being drafted first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's kind of jump into the Chiefs real quick. Bro, let's get your initial thoughts. I know you kind of we talked, I think you were leaning kind of more towards maybe a Cam Robinson signing at tackle if they were to pick up somebody, but instead they wheel in the 49ers guy, 2 for 30, 2 for 31 or 2, something like that. Essentially, it's basically a 1-year kind of prove it type deal that they can get out of if he's not, lives up to it. So give us your initial thoughts, and does that necessarily take the Chiefs out of a first round tackle if it's there?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I like Jalen Moore just because of the contract. I'll take this, in his limited time behind Trent Williams and hopefully learning from Trent Williams. He actually looked pretty good. I don't know if there's enough out there to just really know what you'll get. Andy Reid, before the last few years, has always been really good at just having really good offensive lines. We figured out the interior, but can't get tackles. But I think this will at least be an upgrade from what we had. I don't think he's going to just be a revolving door for defensive ends over there to run through. And I do think, if he plays up to what we've seen in his limited time, I think it's worth it. You had to do something. I do think it takes him out of a first round tackle, but I do still think they addressed the tackle in the first couple rounds, though. It's still not a position you don't want to have a lot of plans in place for. You're hoping no injuries and stuff happen and he plays well, but I mean, that's just not how it works. And again, with the Chiefs cap space, you kind of had to find these people, maybe a little overpay for this guy, but you weren't going to be able to compete with 5 for 80 for a Dan Moore. Cam Robinson probably played his way out of like a Chiefs idea, just out of durability. You kind of need durability there because that's what we haven't had. So I like the signing. It's a good value. Maybe he turns into a long-term left tackle if he proves it right. I like the bargain finds they had. The Christian Fulton, not an elite corner, but a good enough corner. Really good run tackling corner, which we know Spags loves. And then my favorite signing is Elijah Mitchell. He's not going to come in and carry a workload, but Andy Reid usually has pretty good game plans for guys like that. Same as like the Jerick McKinnon role. Um, it was very minimum money. Right now Pacheco's the only running back on the roster. P. Ryan's gone. Hunt's still free agent, so you had to do something, and adds a little maybe explosiveness to the offense for little to no money in the NFL. I mean, I would take $2 million, but in the NFL world, that's nothing. So I think they've done well with what they have. So I think it opens them up to do whatever they want draft night. But tackle will be addressed, maybe not first round.
Yeah, we've talked multiple times. Chiefs kind of, obviously coming off Super Bowl loss, but again, coming off a Super Bowl in a general, we know there's holes, right? We know there's holes, and you're not going to address all of it in free agency. That's just how it is. But you get an idea of what teams are going to do. Arlen, I actually meant to bring this up. I did a screenshot of it, and I'm kind of disappointed. Didn't see it until now. Xavier Woods, 2 years, $10 million with the Titans. I actually like Xavier Woods. He's quality. He's a quality player. And 2 for 10. That's not terrible for what the safety market has been. That's kind of on par. And I think you're getting a reliable person when healthy. It gives your back into your defense kind of something to, it helps.
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, he's not by no means is he a superstar, but I think he's good enough to where he can play his position really well. Besides the Blake Hant signing from Jacksonville, that was probably my favorite signing. And I think one thing that the Titans are doing with this free agency is that I don't think they're tanking, but I don't really think they're putting their best foot forward, if that makes sense. I think they're just kind of saying we're going to bring in some reliable veterans to get us through the year. We know we're not a contender. We know we're not going to win a Super Bowl, but I just think they're really just kind of playing it safe here, just bringing in some reliable guys, some short deals besides Dan Moore. But I really liked it. I thought it was a good signing.
Yeah, again, a veteran player. Yeah, I was scrolling through my screenshots and I was like, oh, dang, that's one I wanted to bring. I screenshot it for a reason because that's one I wanted to talk about. So,
Yeah, I think him at 2 years, $10 million is an absolute steal.
Mm-hmm.
Like Arlen said, not a superstar, but the value you're going to get from 2 years, $10 million, that's kind of almost like backup / special teamer contract. But if he stays healthy, like that's quality safety play.
and in
Nice
comparison,
contract.
Jeremy Chin got 2 for 16 with the Raiders. So I mean, yeah, obviously Jeremy Chin's obviously a different caliber. But again, Xavier Woods proven he's played plenty of football. And then obviously the signing I'm getting ready to talk about, Denver with Hufanga, 3 for 45. Now you're not going to give Xavier Woods 3 for 45, but again, 2 for 10, kind of a prove it kind of, this is a deep safety class in the draft too. So again, you can bring someone in late, kind of learn from, and then kind of see what you have. So let's start with the Broncos one. We got a few minutes left here, so we'll kind of end it on this. So Talanoa Hufanga, 3-year, $45 million contract. He wasn't number one on my safety list of who I wanted Denver to get. That was Javon Holland. But seeing this deal, actually seeing Javon Holland deal makes it a little sad. But what Holland signed for 3 for 36 or 35 or something with the Giants, so I was kind of like, eh. But when this dude's healthy, he's absolutely a stud. He's what Vance Joseph likes, those guys that can play on the line. Someone did point out to me today that he was the one that got truck stick by Patrick Mahomes in the end zone. So we won't go too in depth.
That's just to make you feel better. That's not right.
No?
It was Mustafa.
Oh, hell yeah. See? Boom. So
yeah,
it wasn't.
I could have let you sleep with that, but your new safety didn't get truck stick by Patrick as much.
Perfect.
He could in the future, but it was Mustafa.
Perfect. So he's one of those guys that he's a box safety. So they're going to play him down on the line because Brandon Jones will have the back end covered up. Safety was one of the top on the list. If you listened a couple weeks ago when we had Matt on here from OC News, he kind of labeled safety as a big need too. So we were able to knock that need out. The one that I didn't know if we were actually going to be able to do was getting Dre Greenlaw 3 for 35. If he is healthy and can get back to what he was, unfortunately didn't play much last year, and then obviously the Achilles injury in the Super Bowl. Bro, I think you're the linebacker guy here, so kind of give us your thoughts on what your thoughts were with Dre Greenlaw to Denver.
Yeah, I mean, Chiefs don't win that Super Bowl if he doesn't get hurt that game. That dude was flying around, setting the tone, and the game, the game changed when he got hurt. It's hard to tell. I don't want to call him old because he could still obviously outperform me in any task in life. Um, so you don't really know what he's going to come back and be like. But even if he's close to what he was, I mean, you're talking about one of the better all around linebackers in football. Maybe not great at anything, but just good at everything. Not he's not a matchup nightmare. He's not going to cost you in coverage. He doesn't shy away from stopping the run and getting his nose dirty. So I mean, if he comes back healthy, even a step or two slower or hesitant or something, like, it's still just a really good linebacker. It's hard to know when these dudes get up there in age and have injuries like that. He's coming off some, like, I think it was like a torn elbow or like pec or something before the Achilles. Like, so they're piling up. But yeah, I mean, if he's healthy and just close to what he was, I mean, it's a steal for Denver.
And then my favorite signing, and I was telling you this the other day when I saw he got cut, Evan Ingram, 2-year deal. That's the Joker we've talked about, right? He's going to come in and be Sean Payton's Joker right away. That doesn't necessarily take us out of the running for maybe a Colston Loveland in the first round, but I think it does. I don't think we worry about first-round tight end. So you pair him up with Adam Troutman, who's the blocker, receiver type. This is the guy who's going to take over the middle of the field for Sean Payton's offense.
I think it. Me, I'm a tight end guy too, so like I think of these dream scenarios. But even if you were to draft like a Colston Loveland, I think Ingram's going to be more of like a slot receiver than he is tight end. And then you actually have like Loveland at tight end. I don't know. To me, that would be like a dream scenario where you just have a dude like Cortland Sutton, Evan Ingram, and then kind of your gadget guy kind of running the deeper, medium size routes, and then your Loveland just running like possession tight end. Sean Payton's an offensive genius, whether you like him or not. The dude knows how to run an offense. I think it's a great signing, especially I think before we knew the money, I told you, like, if he's in that like 8 to 12 mil annually, I think that's good value. And I think it ended up being like 11 and a half annual value and like 2 for 23.
Yeah, 16 and a half guaranteed. So
yeah, so I mean, he's in that range of where it's a pretty good pick. I'm a tight end guy, so I always think tight ends are very important to an offense's success. You can usually look at the good offenses and they have good tight ends. Not necessarily great or all pro, but just reliable tight ends. So it's a good signing. It doesn't seem like it might be a long-term thing, but it's one hell of a Band-Aid until you get to that point.
Yeah, and Tennessee has a good tight end. I know we're both big fans of their tight end when he's used correctly.
Love that guy.
So again, at least you guys have the tight end position going for you.
Yeah.
Now, if you can just get that quarterback thrown to him.
The Ingram was awesome. I love seeing the Jaguars just completely fall apart. It's really awesome. Christian Kirk, if he didn't go to the Texans, that'd be pretty nice. But yeah, I think it's a very good signing. Like he said, use him as a slot receiver. I think if Sean Payton can use him correctly, which I think he will, I think it's a very good signing.
Yeah, and that's lacking last year. You can see Sean Payton's offense wasn't the same. I mean, Adam Troutman, yes, cool, but he's not working.
Just couldn't catch. Like
he wasn't working the middle of the field like Evan Ingram's about to. And so now we just got to get that running back figured out. I'm still not letting anyone talk me into a first round running back. That could change. So again, Arlen, I again want to thank you for joining us today. Find him on Instagram. Kind of give us a rundown of kind of what's your page is about.
All right, I've been doing this for a few months now. We kind of just focus on the Nashville teams, you know what I'm saying? Nashville Predators, Tennessee Titans, Nashville Soccer Club a little bit there. I saw today New Era released some hats for our potential baseball team. So a lot of exciting stuff, and I'll be covering it all. So just really excited.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you joining us tonight. We'll definitely have to kind of get you back on after the draft to
Mhm.
kind of get your thoughts on what they end up doing with that number 1 overall pick. Next week, we're really, really, really excited. We'll have Chi-Town Blitz joining us. He covers all things Chicago, especially the Bears. They've been very active in what they're doing. So again, he's going to join us. We're going to kind of run down what the Bears kind of offseason has been looking at. There's a line. Find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeart. The video will be up this weekend, but the audio will be out later tonight. Bro, do you have anything that you would like to add before we sign off here tonight?
No, I just again appreciate you joining us. We always like getting different fans' perspectives and thoughts and point of views and kind of shooting the shit when it comes to sports, right? That's what this is all
Mhm.
about. So um, I can't say I'm a Nashville Predator fan, but I do like some of their players. So I don't completely hate the Nashville sports.
We
Uh,
live we live in St. Louis, so it's
Yeah.
Blues. Not even really like
Mhm.
huge Blues fans. We're just we
Up
live in
here.
St. Louis, so people assume we're Blues fans. So, but again, Ryan O'Reilly was kind of the first guy from the Blues that I kind of started liking when I first
Mhm.
moved out here. So, uh,
He
and
was my favorite NHLer when he played
he's
for
on my
St.
fantasy
Louis.
team, man. I love him.
Before he even came here, like a while back, before he even went to Toronto, I was like, I really wish the Preds would get a guy like O'Reilly. And then they finally got him. I was just thrilled. I really wish this season had gone a little bit better. But they're on a 4-game win streak. When they can get a lottery pick, they decide to pick it up, you know.
No, we'll definitely have to chop it up about some hockey
Mhm.
maybe sometime too. I know we had the ladies on from New York not too long ago. They're Rangers fans, so
Yeah, I
um,
listened to that one. That was a good one.
yeah, they're
Mhm.
fantastic. They're hilarious. We'll have to get them back on too and kind of listen to them rant on about the Rangers and what they're doing. So again, appreciate your time tonight. Again, this episode, the audio will be out tonight, and then we'll get the video posted this weekend. Again, everyone, thank you all, and we'll talk to you guys next week. All right, dude. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Uh,
Thanks for having me on.